Okay,
All right,
we're live.
it looks like we're live. Okay, so I want to welcome you to the Education and Wellness Committee meeting. I think this is going to be the last one for this year. I know that a lot of you have questions and concerns, and I put together a rather ambitious agenda for this evening. So what I would like, I did not actually share it with you, but it's basically whatever questions I received, I try to sort of organize them into topics, and those topics for tonight are summer school, reopening plans, ALP, IB, and slash AP, a science research program, which is kind of almost like a rubric for IB, AP, and SCL. So Dr. Reynolds received all of your questions, or most of them. I mean, I couldn't quite fit everything in, but I tried to really fit as much as I could. So I would like him to go through the topics, and then you can ask your questions, and let's just be mindful of the time. And I know that not everything is going to get answered, so I think we do have, you can always reach out to the board or administration, and we have the summer moving forward because, as you know, we have Dr. Iverson coming in on July 20th. And I just want to reassure all of you that, she will be meeting with all the stakeholders and listening to you and trying to sort of, you know, wrap her head around everything that goes on in Greenburgh. So this is just one meeting, and there will be more throughout the summer. So, Dr. Reynolds, why don't you take it away?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone, and we welcome you to this evening's Education and Wellness Committee meeting. I have two of my colleagues with me, both Mr. Michael McCoy, who is our athletic director, and Mr. Brendan Gallivan, who is our director for IB, World Languages, and English as a new language. So I wanted to give them an opportunity to present to us at the onset of the meeting, so that we can free them up so that they can get to their families. We will go through each topic as Madam Chair did express. I'd like to allow Mr. McCoy to give us an update about our athletics program and all things wellness related from the district perspective. Mr. McCoy?
Thank you, Dr. Reynolds. Good evening, everyone. We are finishing up our spring season. And it will be a wrap of our entire 2020-2021 sports season, which has been an up and down season. We are in plans right now of how we are going to hold our sports awards this year. In the past, before COVID, we had in our gymnasium a big sports awards dinner, which we invited family and athletes, and our booster club would do a great job with it. This year, we are going to do it differently. It'll most likely be virtual. We have some plans in place in the next 2 weeks of how we're going to do it. We ordered our awards last week. We're excited to do something different than we have in the past. Since last year, we didn't get to celebrate like we usually do with our student athletes. So that'll be an announcement in the next week or so of how we are going to do it, and we'll send a blast out to the community. We would like to have everyone involved, so it'll be something similar to like we're doing now. I'm just meeting with our coaches next week to get a finalization of it. We have our 8th grade middle school field day coming up on June 17th, which our phys ed teachers in the high school will be running. And then we will have a blast that will be sending out to the 6th grade parents at R.J. Bailey, introducing them to sports for next year. We've had a lot of questions. In years past, before COVID, I would go down to Bailey and meet with the phys ed classes and talk to them about sports. I plan on doing that in the next week or so. And then a blast will go out to the parents, and then a blast will be going out to our 7th through 11th grade parents, introducing them and talking to them about fall sports. The one difference for our 8th graders going into 9th grade next year is in the fall, athletics starts before school starts. So the 7th and 8th grade sports usually don't start until school starts. So for our 8th graders going into 9th, the dates are going to be before school starts. So parents will get, to plan their vacations accordingly. And if you have any questions, you always can get in touch with me or email me or call my office.
So, Mr. McCoy, I'm sorry, but so we are moving forward with the expectation that everything is sort of going back to normal. We're fully in person, sports are fully on, everything is pre-COVID, basically.
Yes, we've been, as athletic directors in the county, we meet once a month, but recently we've been meeting every week, and we met Tuesday, and we've gotten the word from New York State that we're full go next year in September.
Great.
Full go, a regular normal season. The one thing, again, is as everything is masks. Will masks have to be worn or things like that? We haven't had any guidance with that. And once we do have guidance, I will send it out. But we're full go, full 3-season sports. Everything is a go. We're looking forward to it.
I bet.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
McCoy. Any other questions from the field for Mr. McCoy? Okay, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate your time, and hopefully you'll have a good rest of the evening.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Take care. Next, we'll turn our attention to Mr. Gallivan and our IB and AP programming here in the district. The questions that were presented to us, we wanted to have an opportunity to express to you what our plans are in relation to IB and AP for next year. So the first question, Mr. Gallivan, that was posed to us is, what metrics do we use to assess the effectiveness of our IB program and diploma recipients? And how does our district performance of diploma students compare to students in other districts?
Thank you, and thank you to the members of the community for being here, making time for this. I also want to reiterate what Dr. Dragic said, that if you have any other questions regarding the programs, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to have conversations about any aspect of our program. So to answer the question about, how are we assessing, or how do we plan to assess our IB programs and what metrics will we be using? So we're at the very beginning stages of our program. We'll be graduating. For those of you who don't know, the process began 4 years ago, and the application process alone was 1.5 years long, and it required interaction with all stakeholders, et cetera. I'll speak more about that later if we have time. But so the metrics we plan to use, most of them are kind of dictated by the International Baccalaureate program. But I'm going to start with one metric that I think is incredibly important right now, because it speaks to our core values of equity, access, and inclusivity. So the first metric I would like to share with you is enrollment. Our graduating Gemini cohort, as they've been come to know, started out as 19 students last year, beginning the 2-year IB program, diploma program, which is junior and senior year. And those incredibly resilient students, all 19 of them have completed the program, the credentials necessary to be considered for full diploma program candidates. Additionally, our rising juniors, we will have 11 full diploma program candidates, and not our rising juniors, our current juniors, we'll have 11 full IB diploma program candidates, and our current 10th graders, we will have 21 IB diploma program candidates. So in terms of newly introduced programs, and just even comparing ourselves to programs, many local programs, those are very good numbers considering the size of our school for full IB diploma program candidates. Another number that I'm even more proud of, because again, it speaks to equity and access and inclusivity, is we have 53% of our current juniors and seniors enrolled in at least one IB diploma program course. And that's a 2-year commitment for most of our courses. And what that speaks to is actually when I came here to help start this program, my vision was IB for all, meaning that I hope that all students, we have a great IB experience K through 10, but I hope that all students would have an IB diploma program experience. So right now we have 53% of juniors and seniors in one or more IB courses. It's my aspirational goal that obviously with the permission and support of the Board of Education, the superintendent, and the assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction, that we become a school that has as part of a graduation requirement sitting for at least one IB diploma program course. We have a neighboring district that has as a requirement, it's a small district, a small neighboring district that has as a requirement for graduation that students take both the IB language and literature offering and the history offering. So almost all of their students will sit through those courses as part of their graduation requirements. So I just want to speak to why that's an important metric for me, for us, because the goal, the exit goal of our schools is not to get students into college, not to get students to the next stage of their life, but to prepare students to acclimate and to be successful in college. So the kinds of skills learned, the increase, the writing expectations, as well as global disposition and disposition to the will to entertain multiple perspectives will give students a leg up on just acclimating to wherever they will be going and certainly performing well academically. Because wherever our students will go after graduation, it will be different from here, even if it's Pace University or maybe it's Alabama. So taking these social skills and academic skills are critical for future success. And so that's why I'm such a huge proponent of IB for all. And I consider enrollment at this early stage of our program a critical metric. So of course, in addition to that metric, we will be collecting data. And we will be, first of all, we will collect local data sets. All of our IB diploma program teachers will be collecting their own personal data. But that being said, there are 3 major data sets that we will be creating because we are IB diploma program school. The first is the data we will get from mandatory internal assessments, which in a normal year are internally scored, but are externally audited. So for example, if I were the International Baccalaureate Diploma Program chemistry teacher in a normal year, and I'll get back to that point in a second, I would internally score my internal assessments, but the IB diploma, the IB organization could audit my class and ask for X amount of representative internal assessments to ensure consistency and validity of scoring against other IB programs globally. In addition, another data set that we will be collecting are in a normal IB assessment year, we'll be collecting what IB refers to as the final papers, which are final exams. This year, students globally didn't sit for final exams. The third data point that we will use that we're required to report to the IB is something called a predicted grade. A predicted grade is a teacher's prediction of what a grade is based on IB criteria that's course specific, content specific, also the internal assessment score and the predicted score on the final assessment. So the predicted grade, once again, doesn't serve a Greenburgh purpose. It serves an external IB purpose. They want to ensure that our grades, our ways of arriving at a score for an IB course are consistent with and calibrated to the same course around the globe. So let me just say those 3 data sets again. internal assessments or performances, predicted grades, and final assessments. So we're in our first year. Our interesting struggle will be that we will end up after our third year with 3 different sets of data. Let me explain what I mean. So this year, our first graduating class won't sit for final exams. It's not part of what IB is, because of course, the global pandemic. The IB has made allowances for that. They also took for, they sat for internal assessments, which this year will be scored externally by the International Baccalaureate Organization. And some of those internal assessments were what IB calls mitigated. In other words, they were modified because of current circumstances, these students operating for 13 months under a global pandemic. So our first data set will be comprised of predicted grades and IB scored external assessments. In year 2, we will have an IB assessment approach, quote unquote, a normal IB assessment approach, our cohort. So in other words, our current juniors, they will experience a normal IB approach. They will have internal assessments, they will have predicted grades, and they will sit for final papers or final assessments. However, the IB has already announced that those final assessments are going to be mitigated. They're going to be different, they're going to be altered, again, out of respect for these really horrible, challenging times we've had during the pandemic. So next year's data set will include these 3 data points, but they will be different, slightly different than our data set this year, because we'll have 2 data points. Our current sophomores, 2023 cohort, will be the first cohort graduating from Greenburgh Central School District that will have a quote unquote, God willing, a quote unquote IB assessment, a normal IB assessment approach, in which they will sit for the internal assessments, which will be internally scored and externally moderated. They'll receive predicted grades for the purposes of IB calibration with other IB school districts, and they will sit for unmitigated, quote unquote, regular final assessments. So after 3 years, we will end up with these different kinds of data sets. But clearly, we will triangulate these data points to inform our course design, to inform our approach to assessment, and to inform how we help and assist and offer support in class and out of class to our students. So that's those are the first kinds of data sets we will collect. I want to give you further information about IB assessment that has actually been going on. So this isn't just particular to IB diploma program. This is particular to our primary years programs and our middle years programs. So if you are a member of an IB school network, you are supposed to have, some of our schools didn't have this for a little while, but you're supposed to be on a 5-year review cycle. So every 5 years, you're supposed to experience a site visit by International Baccalaureate Organization representatives. And the purpose of that visit is to have the school reflect on its practices and to get direct feedback about all aspects of their International Baccalaureate program. This year, this school year, 2021, we had virtual site visits to Lee F. Jackson, Highview School, and R.J. Bailey. And the IBO teams, clearly individualized teams for each school, came from places as far away as Colombia, Montana, just all around the world. And we're currently waiting for a report on the status and also feedback on how we can improve these IB programs at Highview, LFJ, and RJ Bailey. And additionally, the year before, we engaged in a similar process. In fact, Ms. Darden-Centrone was part of, and Dr. Dragic was part of a panel that was interviewed by an IB site visit that was evaluating our middle years program. And in it, we have received that report, and I'll get back to what we're going to do with this report. It will inform our PD plan. But I also want you to know, because while the IB diploma program is highly structured and teachers get specific kinds of training for specific courses, the other programs the middle years program is also content specific in its training, but it's a little more esoteric. But that being said, we submitted our middle years program, our 7th through 10th grade program. By the way, that was another difference we made in my time here. In the interest of articulating the programs, our middle years program used to be 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. It became 7th through 10th grade. At any rate, we also submitted over 40, I don't remember the exact number, but over 40 units of instructions from across all content areas designed by Woodlands middle high school teachers, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade. We submitted them to the International Baccalaureate Organization curriculum review process and have received feedback on those units that are currently being taught in our schools for the purpose of getting feedback and designing and organizing our curriculum. So it was part of my vision and plan, in addition to introducing the International Baccalaureate Diploma Program, to get to feel the status of our programs, have all of our programs evaluated in short order, even persevering through the pandemic, so that we would get K-12 information about the status of our district, so that now we can channel this K-12 information into a coherent 5-year plan for curriculum development, program development, etc. So that 5-year cycle is another recurring IB-directed audit process, but more than that, it's a school self-reflection process. The IB organization is really into and a proponent of teachers and organizations doing a lot of self-reflection and students doing reflection. Those of you who have students in the diploma program will know that they are constantly in different stages of reflection. So those are the sources of information we're going to get that will inform what we will do with our program in the interests of creating the greatest possible program for our children, your children. So that's kind of a long answer to the metrics question. I don't know if anyone has, but my next answer is going to be really short, just a heads up. But I don't know if anyone has any questions regarding any of what I just said.
Before we take questions, Mr. Gallivan, if I can just recommend, let me ask the second question. It relates to IB, and then this way we can have an all-encompassing opportunity for questions. Yeah. So is there any opportunity for us to expand our course offerings in either IB or AB?
So regarding the advanced placement courses, we've chosen to be an IB school district, and so where there are redundant courses, in other words, where there's an IB course that kind of looks like an AP course, we have chosen to, as a school district, to go with the IB offering. Considerable research went into our initial offerings. I investigated, we as a team, our IB coordinator, et cetera, we investigated other schools to find out what course offerings would be best suited for launching a program, and also what courses were suited to our specific teachers and our Woodland students' strengths. So there's considerable consideration that went into the initial offerings, and so we're trying to be thoughtful as we propose new offerings as well. So very recently we had a teacher trained, so one of our new offerings is set to be a computer science course. We also have identified IB physics as a future offering, and psychology, again, based on student interest and strengths. When I say student interest, We had 3 students write their extended essay paper on psychology-based topics, even though we don't have an IB psychology course, but of course they were advised by people who are like Dr. Fritz, who are well-versed in psychology. So those are the courses we're proposing in the very near future. A challenge with offering courses in a small school, and I think Dr. Reynolds would agree with this. When we have a number of singleton offerings across a grade of 110 or 120 students, it depletes chances of courses being offered sometimes, because you have the same great kids, and you have you end up with courses that are kind of underpopulated. So for IB schools and IB programs, I think our in terms of our future planning, we will certainly continue to expand, but we'll do it judiciously with input. But to reiterate quickly, computer science, physics, and psychology are the courses that are right now considered as part of the expansion. I think our AP offerings are pretty static. I don't have any information that we're offering new AP courses.
Thank you, Mr. Gallivan. And just to also piggyback on what Mr. Gallivan says, I want to marry the point that what many school districts try to do in order to not allow there to be any singleton courses that could be underpopulated is almost force the hands of students to take classes by making a part of their graduation requirements that students must sit for at least 2 IB courses. So that's a part of the reason why some of our neighboring districts may take that action in order to keep those classes populated.
Yes.
Right. So through the chair, are there any questions as it relates to IB?
By the way, thank you for bearing with me for such a long explanation. I appreciate your kind attention.
Well, I have a number of questions, and then I don't see anything in our chat. I could give our participants a chance to ask them as well. So my first, well, first I have a comment and then I have a question. The IB, as far as I know, has always sort of curved their results. And so, when you talk about the COVID year and the way the assessments are happening this year, I think, excuse me? I'm sorry, somebody.
Ms. McGee, please mute your mic. Thank you.
Okay, so I just, this year is obviously a very, very special year because of COVID, but I still, so my question is, I guess you still don't have the results for the kids. You don't have the actual grades. So you can't tell us how they did with respect to the IB worldwide average, US average, or whatever it is.
We'll get those results in January. Excuse me, July. Pardon me.
In July. Okay. So, but you expect them to be curved, and I'm just curious how, I'm just a little lost as to how they're going to do that, because these are all now internal assessments. So how do they curve internal assessments? I mean, not a school X could just give their kids all 7s, right? And then how do you know whether they're just basically inflating their grades or whether they truly have all brilliant kids that really deserve 7s? I mean, I don't quite understand
Great
how
question.
they're going to do that.
There are actually 2 questions. I'll take the second one first, if you don't mind. So
Okay.
Schools that have had IB programs for quite a long time, that's one of the purposes of submitting predicted grades, because they look at your scores and your grades over time. And so if you have, if you have a history of predominance of 5s in chemistry, and all of a sudden you're presenting as a year with all 7s, the IB will flag that as an organization and likely audit internal assessments from that course so that they can see if that is truly an extraordinary sort of class. We are in a unique position because we're new. We don't have a data history, but it's not uncommon for the international back. I was talking to someone in a district I used to work in not that long ago, who's the IB Diploma Program Coordinator. It's not uncommon for the International Baccalaureate organization to moderate grades up or down based on normally final assessment grades and traditional predicted grades, and if necessary, audited papers. So it's not possible for most districts to say we're sevens across the board because of, for the reasons I just stated. What you say about IB exams being scored, I forgot the word you used, Dr. Grajic.
On a curve.
On a curve. So it's kind of like New York State English grades 3 through 8 English assessments or math assessments. They get the assessments and then they figure out grade scores. So it's not necessarily curved. It's, they have a global performance, so to speak, and then they figure out grade bands in a normal year. Your questions about this year's internal assessments, how do we know there wasn't inconsistent application of what internal assessments are supposed to look like? Well, there was no set way that the internal assessments this year were changed. For example, the maths and sciences were quote unquote mitigated in that there was a different content expectation. The world language internal assessment was mitigated in that there was a section removed from the exam. So the mitigations for this pandemic year look different course to course. And again, that's why this data set will be unique, because these are completely unique assessments and circumstances under which these assessments are being taken.
Okay, so Dr. Reynolds, I have a question. Well, actually, it's for both of you. I would like to know if there is a way of interviewing the children who participated in the Genesis cohort and maybe also the teachers. I don't really know what the best way of doing this is, if it's to actually have a in-person meeting with them, and then I think there should be a discussion about the format of the meeting, how many adults and which adults should be present so that they feel comfortable expressing their honest and true feelings and opinions about the program that they just participated in. And also, frankly, the teachers. I would like this to happen. I'd like this to happen so that the board is appraised of the opinion of the students and also the teachers, but also the incoming superintendent has gets some kind of a sense of what those who are kind of boots on the ground are actually experiencing in our IB diploma program, and that would inform ways of improving it, making it better, right? Whether we do need to increase our menu of coursework, even if we have 5 kids in a class. I mean, I have to say that's what it was like for me. I was in a very small school, and there were certain classes that really had just 5 kids, and but it's important, if and I think that we should continue with the IB diploma program to give. Probably my sense is that the kids need more of a menu that they could feel more invested in. And so I would just like to throw out this idea, and we could kind of have discussion about the best way of having these assessments or interviews, or maybe we could even do like a anonymous, like a sort of an anonymous survey or something. But I feel it's very, very important to get, you know, get the kids to speak and get the teachers to speak, you know, about their experiences and what they've, you know, what they thought was good and what they thought could be improved.
I
I
agree.
appreciate that very much, Madam Chair, and I think that you partially read my mind. I think we'll get some more valid data and true voice if it were. It might not even need to be anonymous, but if it were through a survey,
Right.
rather than almost like an interview where, you know, children are on display
Right.
and feel very conscious about the answers that they're giving. So
Sure.
I appreciate that. I also very much appreciate the fact that it is at least your vision that we should be able to run some courses with low student populations on the high school level. So we will absolutely make sure that we're able to do that moving forward as it
Okay.
relates to student interest, because it sounds to me that we have board support there. So Mr. Gallivan?
I just wanted to mention that it is part of our planning that we will be surveying students and parents, and certainly we can survey teachers as well. I think it's important to hear these voices.
Absolutely.
I agree more.
Yes. I see that Ms. Simon has a question. Sylvia, would you like to unmute yourself? I see, I don't think Ms. Simon hears us. I have will we be surveying the freshman, sophomore, and junior
Right.
level as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really important to me whether there's going to be additional professional development for the teachers that are involved in the program. Because even if you're very well versed in your field, I saw with my granddaughter, she had to write long, extensive papers in areas that ordinarily you wouldn't have to do that, say in an area of science or art, and some of the teachers seem to struggle with even in helping the students as they began to create their different products. So I think the teachers needed more professional development. That's just my impression.
Can I add also while we're on, I sent the chair some concerns about following up and metrics. One of the things I heard tonight was very good in terms of explaining where you are and the various tools you use to accomplish that. The problem is you need to make that known to the public, what you're doing. If I had known what you are actually doing, I would not have written my email. It's just that we're completely in the dark of the processes that are being used. And I think that is, a major opportunity to change that because what I've heard is very good. You just need to let the public know what you're doing.
Mr. and Mrs. Simon, on behalf of the district, I thank you very much for what you've shared. I do always state that we can find a way to communicate better. That's our job. That's something that we have to do, not just as district employees, but I think as community members as well. So we will look to try to improve our communication about our successes and our challenges, because at the center of it all, there's a child, and we want to ensure that our families know what's happening with our children. This year, we did take an opportunity at the request of a community member as it relates to our International Baccalaureate page on the district website to redesign the website as it relates to IB. So we're going to be utilizing that as a platform more readily to express this information that we have so that it doesn't seem that we're withholding information from the community, because we want to be as transparent as possible as it relates to how our students are producing and how we measure student production. In relation to Ms. Simon, what you are stating, I couldn't agree more. I think that we need to have more levels in place in terms of our improvement of teacher practices. Please know that this district is dedicated to the continuation of IB, but not just a continuation, the improvement. And a part of that is having a robust teacher improvement program in place for our teachers as it relates to specific instructional areas through the IB lens. So we are going to continue with that. Mr. Gallivan is in the process of working with the International Baccalaureate Organization to develop a new menu of professional development opportunities for our teachers. So we want to state here that we are dedicated to that as well. So thank you very much.
I'd like to say
Thank you.
thank you.
I'm going to call on.
Really, if I may,
I'm
just a second, Dr. Drago.
Sure.
It's really nice to see you, Mr. Simon, and I hear your feedback, and I appreciate you giving that feedback. And one of the main reasons for collecting this data and submitting our units to the curriculum folks at the International Baccalaureate Organization is to inform our teacher professional development. Homegrown, led by our teachers, where there's where there are those strengths, as well as external experts as well. So I appreciate you raising that. That is part of our thinking. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to go along my screen, so I'm sorry if I didn't quite catch you in the right order, but Antoinette, Donna, and Chris.
Thank you, Tanya. I guess my quick question is, I think it's for both Dr. Reynolds and Mr. Gallivan. Is there any way that we can get a breakdown of, I guess, a numbers breakdown, Mr. Gallivan, of all the things that you said about the makeup of Genesis is the first one, right? Genesis. If you can give us, I guess actually for both, a breakdown, like a charted breakdown with how many students participated, and have it broken down with, I'm sorry, I really have a horrible migraine, so I'm trying to pull it together. In regards to their background, whether it's male, female, race, all of those things that kind of helps us identify and really get to see the participation in both levels of the program. Thank you.
Thank you for that recommendation, President Darden. What we will do is we will compile the demographic data of our current Genesis cohort students, provide that to Dr. Chase for addition to the board packet in the next coming weeks.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Donna?
Hi, yeah, so I, 3 quick questions. One's in the chat, was just, understand we're a small district, so we can only offer so many classes. Is there an opportunity for us to work with, other regional schools, or do independent studies so that students have a more, broad offering that they can engage with if we can't offer that because we don't have the student population to do so? And then just following up on the Simon's questions, in terms of the rigor of this program, I've been bringing this up for several years, but I still do have a question of how are we better preparing students in 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th grade to have the rigor of writing proper research papers. I literally, my son is starting the IB diploma program next year. And if he hadn't hand raised to write papers properly, which he has done independently, he has never been assigned, even though he's gone through the whole honors cohort, has never been assigned a research paper, has not written anything for school that was, more than 3 or 4 pages. And that is such a huge leap to go from there to IB diploma, that I think we have to do a much better job for success to, get these kids prepared from 7th grade up or earlier.
That's well received, Ms. Morton. Thank you very much for sharing that. We are in the constant, what's the word I want to use, redevelopment of our instructional program. And we do need input from our families to inform us of how we can redevelop our instruction. We are very well aware that our students who are coming into these more rigorous programs are having some difficulties because of the general, and I'm going to use this term very loosely, so please forgive me, the general education programming that we have here. So we need to reestablish what it is that the expectation is, number one, and number two, how do we augment what we already have in place to better meet the needs of providing a higher level of expectation for all students, regardless of the type of programming they're going into. That is a job that we have promised to keep, and it's something that we've doubled down on this year. We are going to look at additional programming. Luckily, we have this additional funding coming into us as it relates to ESSER, which is basically anything related to COVID, to the COVID mitigation programming as it relates to instruction. So we're able to put into place additional programming, additional instructional tools necessary to meet these needs, because now we can state that not only did we have this problem to begin with our regular instruction, but COVID has added an extra layer to it. So it gives us an avenue to use our funds more appropriately to meet those needs. So working with our literacy department from the high school down, because this is backwards design, right? It's not something you can establish on the elementary level and expect for it to go up. We have to do some backwards design. That is one of the goals that we're going to focus on for the remainder of this year, for the summer, and moving into next year. Will it happen overnight? I cannot promise that, and I would be dumb to try to do that, but it will be an ongoing job for us to do, and hopefully we'll be able to attain this task within 2 years.
That's great to hear. I would love if we could get an update in the fall on our meeting of what's been implemented to make those changes.
Absolutely.
I'm just being mindful of the time and the fact that we have a lot left. So Chris and then Pamela, and then I think we have one more thing to address regarding this topic, and then we should move on.
Thanks. I have a quick question. It's fantastic that there's 53% of current juniors and seniors taking one course. I applaud that effort to help get rigorous classwork to as many of our students as we can. I'm curious how that compares to previous years' AP class enrollments, percentage-wise. Is it comparable? Are there more kids enrolled in these IB classes? And if, yeah. You're muted.
Right, Mr. Gallivan.
The good news is I'm muted. The bad news is I'm muted. This is kind of anecdotal, but that's why I kind of prefaced when I began my talk about it being an equity issue. When I first arrived in Greenburgh, there was a lot of talk about only certain kids ending up in AP courses. So I can tell you, let me answer your question quickly. Yes, I'm fully convinced that there are more kids in IB courses than there were in our AP offerings, with the exception of probably our more popular history offerings. However, we do have somewhere around 46 kids in our IB history course. But at any rate, short answer is yes. And that is that's an ethical goal for me to increase those numbers.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to pass so that you can continue through, Tanya.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask one more question about this, and this is not a question I think that you can answer right now, but since we are an IB district, right? And I'm wondering I'm just wondering if in order to be able to offer more in terms of the IB if it makes sense to actually forego AP. Because really it's like six of one, half a dozen of another in some way. And if this is really what we're going to be about, whether we should just put all our eggs into the IB basket and just focus on IB and focus on expanding that menu and on, professional development in terms of IB and just going with that rather than AP. Because in my mind, if you're taking an IB course, there's really not that much of a difference between an AP and an IB. So why, it's almost like, doubling up.
Yeah, there are districts that make that choice. I'm aware of districts that stick, they basically, all their offerings are IB unless there is some outlier AP course that really meets, a local desire or want.
Right. Okay, well, I mean, I think this is just a discussion maybe to have with Dr. Iverson moving forward, how best to sort of utilize our resources to the greatest effect for everyone, essentially. So anyway, I'll stop there, and Dr. Reynolds, I'll let you move on through the agenda.
Thank you. I'm going to continue just a little bit longer on that subject. So
okay.
I'm very happy that we will have that consideration and that conversation with Dr. Iverson. I do believe that you can't have one foot in one area, one foot in the other, and do anything well. So if we are considering ourselves to be an IB for all district, I do think that that would be the best opportunity for us to maintain course offerings that are going to meet the needs of our students, but also we'll be able to be fiscally responsible and maintain numbers of students in the courses as well. So I will second that, and now I think we might move on from that.
Okay.
I would also say that, as I said, we're still waiting for the program reviews of Leah Jackson and Highview and Andre Bailey, but we will be recommended to do curriculum work. That will certainly be among the International Baccalaureate Organization's recommendations. So it's going to require, to Ms. Simon's earlier point, to other questions about teacher preparation, it's going to require a K-12 approach to looking at a curriculum.
All right, and with that,
we did that. Anyway.
Through the chair, we do have quite a few more topics to discuss. So we have about a half an hour left.
Right. So actually, Dr. Reynolds, if you don't mind, because this is somewhat related, and I don't want to beleaguer this point, but just because I attended the last two IB meetings. And we had this discussion about extended essays. And then I know that there's been this desire for a while now to sort of reboot the research. I'm sorry, I'm missing the science research program. I just wanted you to quickly address whether we could do that in a very small, almost I would say, kind of informal way, if we could just start next year with just a couple of students or whoever's interested, and maybe just one or two teachers, and I'm just once again going to offer to you my connections and my reaching out to various institutions and people I know who might be able to accept our students into these programs.
Well, thank you very much for that offer. The short answer to that is no. I would not support putting together a science research program to be started in September. I just don't think that would make for a robust program for our students. Okay. What I would like to share, though, is I've already begun exploring options for science research, so I will absolutely take you up on that. I'm in conversation with an agency that is going to have shovel in ground very soon in a local Westchester area where they are building a complete science research. Hold on for 1 second, please. One of the employees are coming in. I just need to close the door. Okay. I apologize. So they're going to begin construction with a complete science research facility geared towards middle and high school students. The opportunity there, as has been presented, is for this to be fully housed, offered to many school districts within Westchester County, but we are the first school district with whom this person is in conversation. So that's one avenue I want to be able to explore a little bit more fully. But again, this would not take, and I don't want to mislead the community, this would not take away the opportunity for instruction from our teachers. So the intent is to have the facility where the science research can be expounded upon outside of the classroom area in consultation with this type of an organization, but have our teachers be the mentors and be the progenitors of all of the instruction and the instructional plan for our students. So that's a conversation that's been held thus far. I would not want to rush this process because I do believe fully in science research. During my time in Ossining, which is probably the premier science research district in the area, I know the necessity to really develop a program that's not just going to meet the needs of us, meaning adults, and the needs of our students temporarily. It needs to be sustainable. So we want to be able to do this the right way. So yes, so shorter answer, yes, I am in full support of reinstituting science research, but no, not in a short time period. I would like some time to study so that we have a great avenue for our students.
Okay, so I think, there are districts that just really do it, with dedicated teachers and department heads. I don't know if it's really necessary to hire, but you might, maybe not tonight, but I'd like to hear more about why you think it's necessary to hire a company to actually do this rather than just have, I'm dedicated teachers who are very passionate about this, helping their students, and then, have a pipeline sort of to research institutions that would actually take them, and mentors, et cetera, et cetera. So
and I'd like to just push back a little bit. Please don't think that I'm taking away from our teachers. I see them as the pivotal part of this. But science research is nothing without the partnerships. It's nothing without the outside companies and corporations. It's not hiring this organization to do the work for us. This is going to be the hub of all science research in the Westchester area pretty soon. So working with Regeneron, working with Tesla, they're all going to be going through this one organization eventually. We already have our foot in the door through conversation. I want to ensure that what this person is promising is coming to fruition, but that is a part of the conversation that's being held.
Well, this sounds like a whole conversation, so why don't we just move on? But thank you for putting that on my radar screen. Okay. So Dr. Reynolds, I'm going to let you take the rest to how you want it. We had summer school, reopening plans, ALP.
I do see that Ms. Morton's hand is raised. I don't know if it's
sorry.
relation to science research.
Just on science, I just wanted to know, are we going to try to get back into doing Tri-County Science Fair and just some of the lower level things like the science fair at Woodlands for next year?
Yes, that is the goal. We'll be back in full force, and I believe the rest of the state will be as well. So that is the goal. Okay, I didn't get any response. Am I muted? Did everyone hear me?
Okay. Yes.
All right.
And do we know who's going to lead that charge?
At this point, we do not yet. That person has not been identified.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So with that, I'm going to say thank you very much to Mr. Gallivan. I want to get him on his way home. I appreciate your time and dedication to the program, but also your transparency and your data-related responses as it relates to IB. Thank you.
I want to thank everyone on the call. Thank you very much. I appreciate all of your support from the very beginning. Thank you very much. Look forward to more conversations. Have a good night.
Take care, Mr. Gallivan. So through the chair, continuing with the line of questioning that was provided as our agenda, looking at summer school. So summer school was our first area. Chair Dragic, please let me know if there's anything that you would like for me to answer. I can go out of order. You're muted, ma'am. There you
I
go.
think it's easy. I mean, I tried to put the questions in logical order,
Sure.
so maybe
Okay.
you can just go ahead, read them and answer them, and then people can have additional questions. Yeah.
Absolutely. So under summer school, the first sub-question was what grades will be offered for summer help this year? So our summer academies will be offered to students currently in grades pre-K through 11. So 100% of our students with disabilities who require IEPs, whose IEP requires that they attend summer programming, will of course have that available to them through the ESY. Up to about 60 of our students, or about 40% of our current pre-kindergarten students, will have an opportunity to attend summer programming this year. About 13%, or currently about 105 of our current kindergarten through 6 students are eligible to attend our summer AIS, our Academic Intervention Services summer programming this year. The purpose for that particular program is to prevent summer slide of the basic academic skills. The assessments and threshold for being offered an opportunity for that would be a combination of assessing iReady data, classroom and test quizzes, the Writers' Workshop data that is collected from all of our students, and getting a full picture of who our students are and who would be in necessity of help for next year, possibly through AIS. So the summer offerings will be offered to our students who are currently listed to get AIS services, and those through teacher recommendation who are potentially going to need AIS services for next year. For the remainder of our students in grades 7 through 11, this year we're offering 100% of our students an opportunity to come in to have some time to receive some academic and social emotional support. This will be offered in a 2-week duration during the month of July, and 2 weeks per grade level. So the first half of our students, grades 7 through 9, will be able to come in for a 2-week period. And our grades 10 and 11 students will be able to come in on the second week. The main reasoning for this offering this year is we know that our students have not had an opportunity to come together as a cohort for a full year. We wanted to be able to offer some SEL services to our students, along with some opportunities for remedial services if necessary in the basic core areas. This will be offered to our students daily. For the high school programming, there will be an enrichment and remediation in the areas of math and English from 8:30 until 10 a.m. And then social emotional support will be provided to students for the second session of the day from 10 until 11:30 each day. This will be done through workshops, student-led activities, and guest lectures. The next question about that, and I'll give everybody an opportunity to ask a question after I go through. What sort of help will be offered? Math, reading groups, special needs, ELL. So our pre-kindergarten students are eligible to attend summer school to prevent summer slide, but not just in the basic academic areas, but also in socialization. Social emotional development of pre-kindergarten students who are transitioning into kindergarten are so important. And this year being such an unsteady year for them, we want to be able to offer some of our students that opportunity. Again, in grades K through 6, our students are eligible to attend the programming. Parents who are eligible or families who are eligible for this programming will be notified by your school in the next coming weeks. I want to say by the end of next week, if not by the middle of the following week. We know that this is a little bit late, but please understand, we are still analyzing data. iReady was just given to our students last week. We just completed the iReady assessment. We want to be sure that we have a complete picture of our students, their abilities, and some of those who may be expressing some challenges academically. The last part of that summer question is, will the school district be offering school lunch to students and area families this summer? And yes, we are able to continue our food offering to our families this summer, utilizing the same distribution plan that we've been employing all year long. So with that, I see some questions popping into the chat. Dr.
Let's
Dragic?
see, I don't have a question, but I was going to call on Erin. She had her hand up.
Nope, still muted. Okay, hi, thank you. I was just curious, I know ECP has a phenomenal SEL curriculum that, you know, is really embedded in helping kids really connect with each other and understand how to be good friends. I'm curious if you have any concrete examples of what the SEL might look like for the older students. You say guest speakers, but like, what does that mean? What would they be learning? What is it that they're going to be doing?
So thank you very much for that question. We are currently developing what the programming will look like. Our summer school administrator is going to be working with our regular high school administrators and also working in conjunction with our student council. We want to be able to be sure that student voice is reflected in this. We want to also assess what they thought to be very valuable this year. And not necessarily duplicate it, but replicate that success for our students. We don't want to build something just to say we've done it and the students not receive any value from it. So we're still in the process of collecting that information, that feedback, so that we can put that together into a valuable program for our students.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, if we don't have any questions, Dr. Reynolds, I suggest that you move on to the reopening plans.
Okay, so our next section is reopening plans. The first question is, are we planning for regular in-person instruction, or will there be a remote option? So currently, we are planning for a full opening in September. And we do anticipate there might be some mitigation strategies that we'll have to employ, such as wearing masks and the potential of some sort of social distance spacing as it relates to our students. We still have not received any guidance from the New York State Department of Education or from the New York State Department of Health. We anticipate we might get some guidance right around the beginning of July as to what the school opening will be. I'm happy to say that we already have worst case scenario pandemic plan already written and in place. So if there is a need to have some sort of a version of that plan, we can augment the plan to meet our needs. But at this point, based on everything that we're seeing so far in the news and based on everything that is being expressed or not expressed from the New York State departments, we anticipate opening fully in September, as would be a normal opening. We are not offering a remote option at this point. We are not planning to offer a remote option at this point. No talk of remote learning has been mentioned, even in the chatter from New York State. Will there be additional programs to close any learning gaps from last year? We're currently determining the appropriate ways to utilize our 21-22 American Rescue Plan and elementary and secondary emergency relief funds. So that's the ARP and ESSER that I was referring to. We did get a bit of money that will be utilized to mitigate any type of loss as it relates to our students in terms of instruction, in terms of materials, as well as in terms of personnel. So we're going to look at what that what we're able to offer with that. One of the things that we do have to do is we have to put up the plan on the district website, and we also have to have an opportunity for our community to provide feedback and recommendations as to what you would like to see happen with some of those funds. So we're in the process of getting that together to be made public. And then once we have that information, we have to look through the program recommendations from the state, and then we'll make a determination for what will be put into place within the district. The next sub question is, will building leaders, guidance counselors, and teachers meet to share information about students within buildings and across buildings? Yes, we are in the process of planning articulation, both vertical and horizontal. We will have our vertical, and vertical is between buildings. Articulation will take place on our early dismissal Fridays, and we'll be utilizing our faculty meetings on Mondays if necessary in order to facilitate that. We want to ensure that our students are well represented in terms of their skills and assets when it comes to conversation between buildings. I want to assure everyone, though, that the goal of articulation is not to discuss a teacher's feeling about a particular student. The goal of articulation is to discuss a student's skill set as well as challenges, as supported by data, and that data can be observation. But again, I want everyone to understand that the goal is not to just give your personal feeling about a student and what you feel a student can or cannot do. It has to be supported by data. So that's the goal of our instructors, led by our building administrators this year.
I'm sorry, did you say, I'm sorry, did you say we were gonna have early dismissal on Fridays next year, or?
No, I said this year, for the remainder of this year.
Oh, for the remainder of this year, okay, sorry, okay, got it.
Will building leaders guide, I'm sorry, I just read that one. Will curriculum alignment be evaluated to cover any gaps due to the past years? Yes, we're in the process, again, of collecting the data of what our students should have been able to accomplish this year. We're going to compare that information with our curriculum map to see where students should have fallen, and any of those gaps that are prevalent across grade levels in sweeping data sets. We're going to ensure that we've moved those forward to the beginning of instruction for next year. Is it a long process? It is. Is it a tedious process? It is. Is it an exact process? That it isn't. And the reason being is we don't have standardized tests that will offer to us a lot of that information. So we're going to have to utilize teacher assessments, classroom assessments, and anecdotal data to make those adjustments for next year. I think at a previous meeting, I did discuss the fact, though, that data sets don't show that students are that far behind where students would have been at this time of the year as it relates strictly to instruction. We do find that there are bands of students who may not be performing at the same level, and those students, our intent is to address their needs through this reorganization of instruction and through our summer offerings. But in a general term, we don't see that student performance, based on the information and the data that we have, is that far or significantly different or worse than what we've had in years past. And the final two questions in this set: are there any plans to arrange in-school vaccinations? At this point, we do not have any current plans to provide in-school vaccinations to our students. And finally, in this portion, will the district have a district-wide back-to-school presentation to the public, including all building and district administration, BOE trustees, and the PTA council, to discuss what the journey of what entering from pre-K through 12th grade looks like across the district? This has to be discussed with our incoming superintendent, Dr. Iverson. This would be a recommendation to the board from Dr. Iverson. We've received this request from a community member and parent in the past. It's something that I would support. I do know that the difficulty might be holding the attention of a parent of a rising 12th grader when discussing some aspects of pre-kindergarten. So that is a reason why we have building-based back-to-school options for our families. But again, this would have to be a consideration of Dr. Iverson. And Madam Chair, that is it for that section of the questioning.
So I'm going to start with questions and then I'm going to call on people. So my first question is, and I'm sorry, I'm just completely blanking on the term, when you separate the kids out into by subject, when they move around by subject, what's that called?
Departmentalization.
Thank you. And we've been doing that previously before COVID, that all the way down to third grade, I believe. That's when we start.
Mhm.
So is that something that we're going to revise, reconsider, or is that going to be re-implemented next year? I mean, what is the plan for that?
Currently for next year, that is not part of our plan. We wanted to ensure that our students have an opportunity to have one classroom experience, but it is in consideration as a part of our redevelopment for the 22-23 school year. We want to assess, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, no, we want to assess how our students perform, specifically on the lower grade levels as it relates to instruction. But yeah, the consideration is there, and the conversation will be held with Dr. Iverson. Yes.
So currently that won't start until, I mean, when will it actually start next year? Is it going to start in like 6th grade, or like when
Well,
is
departmentalization starts at R.J. Bailey.
RJ Bailey?
Yeah. So
Okay,
fourth
so we're
grade
not going to be doing it at Highview
at
basically
Highview.
next year. Okay. And then my second question was regarding this school presentation. This was brought up by Pamela Davis. I see that her hand is up. I think that's a great idea, but I think we do really have to have a separate discussion about how that would work in a way that would attract parents to come, maybe even other community members, if we would do it like almost like a I don't know, I'm thinking like of a scientific meeting where you have, almost like poster presentations and people can just come and look at what they're interested in with people standing around answering questions. Or I think this is really a separate discussion to be had, but I just wanted to put it on the table, as for other parents to consider and voice their interest or lack thereof and their ideas as to how they would see this working. So I'll stop there. I'm just going to go across my screen. I'm sorry if I'm not calling you in the right order, but I'm going to start with Donna, Sam, Pamela, Chris.
Thanks. So one question around evaluation in summer programs. I just wanted to inquire, I know that for middle and high school, finals were all canceled for this year. And even for people who are eligible to take the few regents that are being held, the letters that went out kind of said, if you're passing, you don't have to take it. If you're failing, you have to take it. I just wanted to understand the reasoning, even if the finals were not counted as grades, would there not have been some benefit to using those finals as an assessment? I mean, we did all the iReady to do assessments, but that's only in 2 courses. We really have no measurement from last year and now this year again on a lot of the other courses. So I just want to understand why that decision was made.
Sure, and thank you very much for that question. So the decision was made in conjunction. No, I'm sorry, I shouldn't use that word. Basically based on how the state dictated its requirement for student performance is how the high school chose to treat its students. So the state was very adamant in their conversation with the Federal Department of Education that this year should not be a punitive year, nor should it be a year where students are really measured, because there was such inequity in the way instruction was provided through the different models to our students. And some students were on the high school level had other family responsibilities due to the financial aspect of COVID. So as a result, the high school department, along with the administration, had a conversation and said, if it meets the needs of the students in that class, we can have a final, but it is not mandated to have a final in classes this year, as New York State, as in its own words, stated we don't want to, and I don't want to misquote what was stated, but they didn't want to hold students accountable to their learning this year. That's why there's no accountability measure as it relates to New York State New York State assessments.
Right, I understand the New York State, but I was just wondering, we had a consistent policy within our own school district. And so not saying that they should necessarily be counted, but I think it would have been a helpful measure within our own district to understand where we stood on that.
Thank you. Noted. And I received that. Thank you.
I think I was next. I'll go ahead and
Yes.
talk and jump in if I'm not supposed to. I understand that it looks like, from what I'm hearing you say, Dr. Reynolds, that next year is going to be, as much as we can, business back to normal. It sounds like, without a remote option, with holes in the curriculum looking to be patched, with all of the ways that we're already looking toward next year, that we're going to just go ahead and go back to what we're used to. That would be great, but we are in a very fluid time, and I'm already hearing questions that are looking at the curriculum. Just this evening, I'm hearing questions that are looking to address what we've just gone through, SEL and learning loss and all of these things. And I'm mindful that in transitioning from one year to another, we don't typically have a reopening committee happening during the summer, and that the reopening committee that did all of their work last year will not be needed in the same way this year. But without that community involvement and all of this being so very fluid at the moment, how do you intend to engage the community, inform the community, stay one step ahead of all of these concerns? What's the plan for something like a community engagement reopening committee? Although it's not needed, I think to some degree it is, and I'm just wondering where you sit on that.
Thank you very much for that question, Ms. Ives. So my response would be that would be a conversation to be held with the board and with our incoming superintendent. I'm not in a position to answer that question at this time without her consultation.
So Samantha, I just want to understand. So you think that we should have some kind of a reopening committee?
Committee is a tough word. I think
Yeah.
we've all had a lot of committee experience, but the way in which the community was engaged last year was so in depth, and to walk away from that this year is a valid choice, but with so many things being very fluid, I think that reopening committee was a two-way tool, right? The school district had the input of all the stakeholders. We created something together. The stakeholders had answers as the questions came up, which was invaluable to parents and community members. I don't think there's a committee necessary. Please don't make me tell anybody to sit on another committee. But without that tool, we still need that level of engagement because we're still in a time of transition. So I'm wondering what that is going to be.
Would you be satisfied? I mean, we do have a new superintendent coming in, and she is going to be, it's my understanding that she will be doing a lot of outreach to everyone, and so perhaps that those conversations with her could be sort of, I mean, that may actually be what we really need more so than a reopening committee, is that she does really meet with the various stakeholders and hears the concerns and, moves forward in a very informed way, right? So it's not a committee, but we're basically, giving the new leadership as much input and as we possibly can. I mean, do you find that kind of a satisfactory?
No, and I'll tell you why. I think it's important and vital, and she said herself in her interview that she wants to do that. So I do see that's going to happen, and I think it's imperative that it does. But she's going to have the same conversation with 30 different groups of people with very slight variations. And then we're going to leave her and she's going to move on to the next group. And whoever just met with her isn't going to hear the updates as they come down from New York State, or the updates as the curriculum is developed to patch these holes, or the updates as the buildings are fixed before our kids go back into them. All of those things are still very fluid. That's all work that the reopening committee did last year that may not be necessary at a committee level, but still needs to be communicated to the community at large, and not just with one meeting with the superintendent. She has a lot of work to do, but those things are going to happen on a rolling basis, and we won't have community involvement in the same way. I'm hoping that the school year gets back to normal, but this summer is not back to normal. This summer is still huge amounts of transition. So I think Pamela can speak to a community back to school and what that might look like. Maybe that's an opportunity for a presentation on all of these things at a district level, with the breakout tables for everybody to go visit and meet their specific superintendent or, principals when they're done. We can make it happen, PTA council and the community, but I think it needs to be mindful. And I think the level of engagement that we had last year should not be dropped for the school's sake or the community's sake before we send our kids back into whatever next year brings us.
So I would just argue that, I was on that reopening committee last summer, and essentially what it was just a lot of concerns, but then it was really the administration that handled it, as they well should, right? And so I guess I'm kind of disagreeing with you. I mean, I think that if we do have a vigorous conversation with the superintendent over the summer, and then perhaps we do something like what Pamela is suggesting, that at the end of it all, she pulls everything together, and the board does as well, and the PTA does, and we all sort of get involved in sort of presenting this, to parents and community, that maybe that really amounts to the same thing, essentially.
Maybe it does. Maybe it's done by bi-weekly newsletters. Maybe it's done by parent walkthroughs at the buildings. There are a million ways to do it. I'm just concerned that it doesn't go away. That's my concern.
Well, Dr. Reynolds, do you have any thoughts on this? I mean, do you have any way of
I think Tanya and I could go on about this for hours. You may as well stop us.
So again, I would have to reserve this for the superintendent, and July 20th will be the date where we could have an answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Chris was next, and then I saw Antoinette's hand go up. I see Pamela waving. I'm sorry, Pamela. Did I skip you? Pamela, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Chris. I'm sorry. My screen keeps shifting. So
great. Well, thank you, Samantha, because you just segued me right into where we were going. But I do want to ask a question about I just want to confirm the departmentalization. So can you hear me? So for the 21-22 year, there will be no rotation even at RJ Bailey, and they will have, or I just want an understanding of that.
Sure, and thank you for that question. Just for clarification purposes, no, for the 21-22 school year, there will not be departmentalization at Highview School. Departmentalization will begin at RJ Bailey.
Okay, all right. So the students that are in Highview right now will be moving into departmentalization for this incoming year.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. The other thing that I want to get to.
Wait, I'm sorry, wait. The students, the current third graders going into fourth grade will have departmentalization.
Will have departmentalization, but there won't be any, again, for Highview for the third graders for this year.
Correct.
Okay.
For the incoming graders.
Okay, and is that going to, and I heard Tanya talk a little bit about, but I kind of blanked out for a second. Is that whole departmentalization being reviewed, being evaluated, even at the Bailey level?
No, that was not our goal to review departmentalization at Bailey. But it sounds like I'm hearing a concern from you.
Yeah, I do. Because if they're coming out of third grade and they have not had a rotation, and I'm not saying that there needs to be one. I'm just saying that they're going from one classroom now into a rotation, and we're specializing teachers where they do have the opportunity, because they do teach across subjects or they're certified across subjects. If we're trying to keep that level of social emotional learning and being able to contain students and see where they are, why bring that over into fourth and fifth and sixth grade when they're coming back into the school district differently? That's just my point of view, and I will talk about that even further. But I do want to get back to the initial purpose of the back to school, and I am hearing that it is a discussion that is for the superintendent, and the purpose of that, which has been a district PTA council plan for the past 2 years, and we've been trying to move it, was that it would allow us to have a platform for the district to explain what their program is. It would have a platform for the board to explain what the goals are. And I think our parents and our community need to have that. And we have kind of worked out an outline, and it's not an all-day thing, but I really want someone to hear it before we even get to Dr. Iverson, because there has to be some type of understanding that it's not thrown together at the last minute, because it has not been presented as a last minute program. So, I mean, I really want us to look at this and see what, at least someone to entertain where we are, because it, like I said, it's not something that just came up. And we have heard from parents over the past couple of years. So there is a need to put that in place, to be able to present it to the superintendent so that she will understand the concern as well.
Ms. Davis, I
Thank
appreciate that. Thank you. And you do have support of at least Dr. Dragic, if not other members of the board. So I do anticipate that this will be brought to Dr. Iverson's attention as soon as she arrives.
Okay, I will like to, I'm going to mention it to work with our council, because we have a meeting next week, and I would like to send an outline so that you can kind of see what the intention is, so that you have an understanding of it and the board has an understanding of it as well. If that's good.
And I appreciate that, and I appreciate being included. I think the best bet would be to direct it to the board and to CC myself. This way the board can share it directly with Dr. Iverson, and then we can establish an opportunity for a conversation.
Okay,
Completely
and then
agree.
I also want us to have we're giving you a date or dates in mind where all of this can happen, because by the time July 20th comes, we're already in August. And it's, as Samantha was saying, we're in movement, we're in transition here. And we do need to have something steady us moving into September. So I will share that with the board after we have the discussion with the council, so that we can all kind of be on the same page. And if anybody has any questions, they should ask. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe it was, so on my screen, so I think it was Chris and then Antoinette, even though they're inversed now.
Thank you. I'm going to jump all the way back to the summer school. I just want to fill in the gap on the K through 6. First, I just want to know, are ELL students included, or is it only if they're AIS or ESY eligible or
Sure.
teacher recommended? No?
Thank you, Ms. Fallon. So the ESY is specific to our students with IEPs who require ESY. For the AIS portion, it is open to our students who are considered to be ELL. Okay.
And then piggybacking on Aaron's question about the social emotional learning, your answer really targeted the 7th through 11th graders. And I just want to know the K through 6 graders who will be attending the summer program, the enrichment program, will there be a component of the day that's also helping with SEL issues, or?
Sorry, yes, I wanted you to finish. Yes, that is the intent, that we will offer some social emotional aspect to each day. Here's the difference. The reason why there was such an emphasis on social emotional at the high school level is because the middle high school level is because most of our middle high schoolers do not have the social interaction option of recess-like environment. So that will naturally be included in the interactions of students on the elementary level. But yes, we will also offer very directed yoga-esque opportunities for our students at the elementary level.
Okay.
Okay. And again, and social emotional is not just the yoga portion. Understand that it's different on each grade level. So for our younger students, it's the understanding of proper relationships. It's questioning and workshops based on what do you do if you feel ... So those types of experiences will be built into our elementary programming.
Okay, like problem solving and
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's still being developed right now?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay, and then just not to dwell on the topic, I do want to point out that when the conversations are had with the board and Dr. Iverson, et cetera, that there are, I think, 2 superintendent conference days on the calendar. That could be a good opportunity for, it could be as simple as like a superintendent dessert to discuss opportunities out there. And I want to just validate again the suggestions about whether it's regular video updates, newsletters, postings on the website about what's going on throughout the summer. I do think that that communication does need to continue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Antoinette.
Hi. So I guess I was listening to what everyone was saying so far. So I was curious, as I know we did it earlier in during the school year. Is it possible to do the town halls again so that families can get specific information in regards to how their schools are, how their school is reopening and all of those things that are associated with that? That might be helpful. Also, the other one, my other thought was, I believe Pamela had brought this up several times during this year too, and I supported that, and I think it's still a good idea if we can have some sort of I guess now, for lack of a better words, maybe like a reopening countdown, where there's a web page where there is continual updates about how each schools are opening or how our district as a whole is opening, and just really providing that sort of information that is always updated, so that whenever a parent can come on, or families or community members in general could come on and see the progress, what is happening with our schools and preparing for reopening. And I had one more thing, and I'm sorry, my last thing was I know that as a board member, I think since I first became a board member, one of the things an idea that I had at that time was to have sort of like a round table, so that the community can, like, each board member would be sitting there and at a different table, and the community could interact with them and learn more how the board runs and works. Maybe something like that could actually be done for building as well, if we were, open to having a live event, and of course having all social distancing measures in it. But it could be an opportunity to do something like that, or even if it's not round tables, maybe it's another, which we haven't done in a long time, a parent university, where again people can go to a certain area and really get that feedback from from their the building principal in regards to what's happening in their schools in preparation for reopening. That's all I had. Thank you. Please, I hope I wasn't on mute the whole time.
No, we heard you. Thank you very much, President.
Thank you.
I should have messed with you and say, no, we didn't hear anything. Can you say it again? But I won't.
Thank you.
I actually was not around for the town halls. Antoinette, were those done by the board or by the administration? I don't know how those worked.
The town halls were done by the administration, and they just had these meetings per, if I'm correct, per building. And they sort of went through, I didn't, of course, I don't have, my son is no longer in the district, so I didn't attend any. But I thought it was really, really, it sounded like a lot of parents felt like it was really helpful. So I thought that was really good. So that's how it was. You know, you had the only thing I think that might have been a little bit too much, I think they all happened in the same week. So you might want to, you know, spread it out a little bit more, just in case you have families with multiple children. But that was one of the things that was done. And they just had a town hall and sort of let families know the lay of the land, so to speak.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I think these are all options, and I do agree that we should sort of have a board discussion with board discussion / discussion with Dr. Iverson as to how, and then, I think to Sam's point, we don't want to have even more committees, but we do want the information out there. So to find the most efficient way of getting it to people is key here, with the understanding also that we have a superintendent that's coming in and has a learning curve ahead of her. So okay. Dr. Reynolds, are we done? I mean, I know that there were some SCL questions, but then we did a lot of them.
But, you know, we have about, I guess if we can dedicate about 10 more minutes, we'll be coming up on the 2-hour mark. There are a couple of questions that I think are very important.
Okay,
if you don't mind.
Thank you.
So I particularly wanted to pay attention and spend some time with ALP and
Yes.
oversight and administration of ALP for 21-22. So the oversight of the program, I understand through conversation last year prior to my coming, was that ALP would be maintained in each building under the direction of the principal. We've had a meeting, we've had meetings, I should say, to develop a plan of how we're going to move forward. So preliminary assessments for incoming students in grades 2 through 6 will be held during the fall testing window. We'll be going back to our testing windows during this school year. Continuing for the 21-22 school year, ALP assessments will return to the spring administration, particularly for our first graders going into second grade. And for the 22-23 school year, we will continue with that fashion, again, God willing. But specifically for June of this year, our principal at Lee F. Jackson and the first grade team will identify first grade students who will be placed into second grade for ALP next year. This identification will be based on criteria of the iReady, the BAS, and teacher recommendation. Because we were not able to facilitate equitable assessment for all students this year, because we still have quite a large number of our students who are receiving fully remote instruction, we did not want to provide an advantage to some families over others. So this way we want to have a consideration for all of our students to go into second grade. But again, any families who are coming into second grade next year would have an opportunity to test during that during that fall administration. Moving ahead to September through October of 21, New entrants into grades 2 through 6 will be offered an opportunity to be administered the battery of tests in September or October. All students who meet the criteria for ALP can transfer into the class in that fall. And the assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction and the director of PPS will be the new team to hear all appeals from families and parents to make a final determination about a student's eligibility based on a review of the specified matrices as it relates to ALP. Moving ahead to spring of 2022, all returning students in grades 2 through 6 will be offered the opportunity to be administered the battery of tests in early spring. So we want to assure everyone that our dedication to ALP will continue. It was really the monkey wrench of the pandemic that affected the way we assessed our students. But our goal and our planning is for us to get back to the normalized ALP program as we so fondly know it.
I had questions, but I'm going to defer to the parents. So I saw Sam, then Antoinette, then Donna.
Thank you. I followed you, but I didn't follow the years. So can you tell me, please, briefly, do I hear you correctly that there will be an incoming second grade cohort in the fall, but that every other student in the district will start in one class, eventually undergo some testing, and possibly switch classes?
No, and thank you for that clarifying question. So this year, because we were not able to provide our normal battery of assessments to our current first graders, this year we're going to use a different set of matrices for admission into ALP, only for our first graders, so that we can create second grade ALP programming at Highview. That will include our battery of examinations that we already offer to all of our students, along with teacher recommendation. So this will create our second grade classes. All of our other ALP students will continue in their ALP programming as it would be for the following year. Any incoming students new to the district will be tested for ALP beginning in the fall, in the early part of the school year. And if they are able to make it into ALP, we will have them change their classes, because when a student comes into the district, they're automatically assigned a classroom based on numbers of students and the role in the class, but they're not assigned to the ALP class. After the assessment, then they have an opportunity to be moved into those classes for ALP, into that classroom for ALP. Does that clarify?
It does, thank you, but it raises, so I'm curious then, if a student registers for the school, do we offer them that test before they start school, or do they start in one classroom and then switch weeks later?
No, we have to offer it to them after they start school, because we have a very specified time frame in which a child enrolls into the district to when they have to be in a classroom. It does not allow us to offer that battery of tests in that time frame. It's usually within 24 hours, 24 to 48 hours that we have to get it.
Thank you. So did I hear you correctly that the first grade students are being assessed via teacher recommendation and observation and iReady? Is that what I heard?
And BAS, yes.
And then moving forward, we will go back to the STAR and the COGAT. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, that was my question. Okay.
And do we have additional people being trained to administer those tests? And part two of that, is that at district level or building level?
So the offering of the training will be on each building level, but will be spearheaded or turnkeyed by district level employees. We will have one person who's always been involved with our assessment, work in conjunction with each building so that there is a norming of our assessment provision to our students. So that common person would go from building to building to work with the principals.
And then, so thank you. It sounds like this is it was moved down to the building level, and now maybe it's being brought slightly back up into the district level a bit. Am I reading that correctly?
No, it will remain on the building level, but we want to ensure that there's not much variation from building to building. That's why we have one person who's always been associated with the assessments work with each of the building principals.
Thank you. And what about the students who are currently students? I know we've lost a year's worth of students this year who could have potentially tested in and weren't offered the test because of COVID. So what about the entirety of our student body? Will everyone have the opportunity to test?
No, not everyone. You mean all of our students in the entire district?
Yeah,
Okay.
since we've lost a year, how do we find the students who potentially are TUI or advanced or otherwise out of the box and belong in an out classroom, but they are already in the district? We just haven't gotten to them this year because of COVID.
Oh, understood. So if we do find from teacher recommendation, which I think was our normal practice, so if we have a child who was in the district, has not had ALP testing in multiple years, and we find that that student is excelling on, whether it's iReady or things of that nature, then a teacher can recommend that that student also sit for the COGAT as well as a STAR and be considered for ALP testing. So it wouldn't be us providing a widespread assessment to all of our students, but we would be able to consider students based on I don't want to say family requests, but based on teacher recommendation.
And that can start in September?
Yes.
Okay, and I only have one more question. I don't mean to dominate, but you're answering a lot of things that I've been wanting to ask you, so thank you. My final question is, my daughter's in ALP. I see it as this incredible opportunity, this beautiful little sandbox. These kids are offered so many ways to play with the curriculum, and some of those things I would love to see expanded to the other classes. Maybe not at exactly the same time. Maybe a mainstream classroom hasn't gotten there yet in the curriculum, or whatever the case may be. But the things that are really working and the ALP students are thriving, how are we integrating some of those things that we see and learn to then expand the equity for all of the students in our district?
Agreed. I fully agree with you. Our ALP program should eventually be our general ed program. And that's how we keep the level of expectation moving in the right direction for all of our students. I agree with you.
Thank you. Do we have an open discussion going on about that, the potentiality of that? Is it looked at in curriculum discussions, or is it more
how do we move
wishes?
The needle? Yes, we do have that. It is an open discussion. Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Donna, I'm sorry.
No.
You were not. Yeah, we're at the 2-hour mark, people. So I know that we didn't quite cover everything. So Donna, quick one.
Yeah, I just, Samantha covered a lot of it. I just wanted to raise one thing when we're looking at departmentalization, especially at RJ Bailey. I think there's some room to consider, I don't know what you would call it, but some different levels, right? So ALP is great, but if there's only one teacher, you're capping that at 25 students or so. And having had a child go through it, I know that there are other children who might not quite be ALP, but they're like just below the cusp. And when they go and they're not in ALP and they're kind of in regular mainstream, their needs are not quite being met either, right? It's kind of, there's the gap is really large between those sometimes, some feedback. So I was just wondering if there's any consideration of somehow of a leveling, or I don't know what you call it, or what do you do when you have more than 25 children who might qualify for ALP? Like, how are you going to start to address those needs, and how do we take those children who are right at the cusp but maybe not there, because otherwise they might kind of not have their needs met and not reach their potential as well?
Thank you very much for that question. I am not in a position to answer that. I hate to say that I still consider myself new to the district. We still have to get ALP up and running properly before we can make any adjustments to students who might just be at the cusp of ALP. Again, we are in the process of coming out of the pandemic, so we want to ensure that we're meeting the needs of all of our students, of course, but I would need some time to really assess what that looks like for those particular students.
Okay, I'm going to stop this discussion here because I'm watching the chat, And I'm also watching the time. And I just want everyone to know, I did put in the SEL questions into the agenda. So I don't,
So
Dr.
the short answers.
so
I can
very
tell
short
you,
answers, Dr. Reynolds.
I
And
can
then
tell
I
you
would
that
urge all of you to just reach out to him if you need more clarification. Thank you.
okay, so we have offered SEL at all of our buildings this year. Our SEL programming is scheduled to take place next year as well. We're in the process of assessing which worked well for our students and which didn't on each building level. We are currently in the process of coordinating our SEL efforts for the 21-22 school year. It will be coordinated with Dr. Iverson. This was generally led by the superintendent, but we're going to utilize the funds that we are receiving for ESSER as well as for ARP in order to put into place programming that we're hoping to be sustainable. We don't want to equate this to a person or a position only because these funds are limited. So we want to ensure that it's something that we can have subsumed by the budget. What I would like to propose, and I guess I'll spill the beans here, is that we do create a stipended position in each of the buildings so that we have an SEL coordinator, and it would be one of our teachers. So that's something that I would like to propose, and hopefully that's something that can be maintained by the budget. But again, this is just me sharing my thought with you. I do not want anyone to hold me or the district to that because I have not shared that with anyone other than this group here at this time, okay?
I'm gonna allow one last question because Erin has been like jumping up and down waiting to ask. So go ahead, Erin, you're on.
Thank you, Tanya. I think just as a general statement, I've come to many of these meetings and tried to get answers that SEL it threads through everything that we're doing. And for the fact that it keeps getting to the end of every agenda and not addressed says something about the priorities of the district, and that's really upsetting to me. When we set the budget for the 2021 school year and there was a new line item for SEL programming, I had asked, what is that money going to be used for? What is the thought process behind it? And that I kept getting the answer of, we're still figuring that out. Come the fall, I emailed with Mr. McCoy, and he said stuff was going to be up on the athletic website. All of the emailed questions I got answers back were, oh, we're still working on that. I talked to Jill Post in the fall. I have sent Dr. Reynolds and Dr. Chase 3 separate emails and have not heard anything back. Katie McGee had asked questions in the last budget meeting and there were still no answers. And this is something that is really, really important. And I understand that it's hard to concretize. It's hard to put SEL in a concrete box that is super measurable because you're measuring basically the absence of something bad happening. But I'm not trying to be melodramatic about it, but we are in a mental health crisis in this country. People are looking for resources. People are reaching out. I've had to call a crisis unit for a fellow parent. Like, things are happening that we can't ignore. And when we have our kids in the district and they say SEL is a priority and that money is being put to this, but no one can answer for me what is being done with that money and whether it's working or not, that's a problem. You had Woodland students come to the BOE meeting and ask for more SEL. We just heard that IB students are looking for psych classes. Like, people are saying this in their own way and it's not being addressed. Even for the summer school piece, summer school starts in about 20 days and we don't have information that we can say, oh yeah, this resource from here and this resource from here and this program from here. And these are the people doing this work. These are the people doing the training. I haven't been able to get any of those answers. When I've brought it up with Mr. M and parent coffees, it just basically sounds like our teachers are being really polite and really kind and really thoughtful to our students and asking how they're doing. But that is not SEL programming. That is not looking at this in a very specific, thoughtful way and putting money behind that. And, my fear is that the district won't act until something bad happens. I don't want it to be that the community feels a crisis or an emergency, and then the question comes, well, what did we do to prevent it? And there's no answer. And that is a really scary thought for me, both as a parent, as a mental health professional, as a community member. I can't figure out a better way to get that information without making a big stink and going crazy during meetings on Zoom. And I'm not really sure if there's a better way. By all means, I will do that. I have offered to help in any way, to do whatever I need to do. But we're in June. Money has been set aside in the next budget, and there's still no answers as to what's being done with it, or what has been done with it, and whether or not it worked. So that's my beat.
So Tanya, I'm gonna jump in real quick. So I think the easiest thing, Dr. Reynolds, like I had requested, you know, the numbers in regards to IB, the data for that. I'm also gonna add, can you also add in the data for ALP in that same sort of breakdown? And finally, since we have had SEL money budgeted for this school year, could you please provide, and I know you'll go through Dr. Chase, could you please provide a breakdown of specifically how SEL money for this school year has been spent? And then if there has been also any other planning for the SEL money that we have budgeted for this upcoming school year, if any of that planning has happened, could you please do so also for the upcoming year so that people can get a sense of what may be coming forth as well. So a full-on data deep dive sharing what we have done with SEL this year and the spending of that money that is related to SEL, what has been happening in our school buildings, and what has our students been participating in it from, whether it's also including training for staff members. If we could just give that sort of information, it is 100% warranted.
President Darden, I thank you very much for that. And what I'm going to request from you is that you put that in a request to the superintendent, as the superintendent is the person who's maintained all SEL funds. And I'm pretty sure that you'll get the information you're looking for.
So I have another question,
I will
which is,
type my email right now.
I'm sure that Antoinette will, and all I want to know, Antoinette, is that when we do get the information, by what venue are we going to share it back with not just Erin, but you know, all the other parents? Like, are we going to do a newsletter about this? Are we going to post it on our website? Like, how are we, I mean, it's going to come back to the board, but how are we going to disseminate this?
I think that if it's, and Dr. Reynolds, now I'm just thinking off the top of my head right now, but I would say if we should get a full report, that I believe that it should be made available on our district website, and that when it is available, if we can have, again, I know I'm gonna reach out to the superintendent, but once that report is ready and finished and is ready for posting, that a school messenger goes out to our community to let them know that it's there.
Should we actually have like a tab? I mean, Sam, I don't know if Sam is still there, if she's like feeding her brood, but I mean, this is maybe something that we actually.
I'm still here.
Okay.
The meeting that we're having in 10 minutes, that one?
Yeah, well,
yeah.
I'm just wondering whether this is something that we actually should have like a tab on our website, you know, SEL, with all the resources and all the programs and everything. I mean, I think that is really what we should have, and not just
Well, first we have to create all those resources and programs. With all due respect, I hear Erin and I agree 100%.
Yep.
And I was told actually there was going to be information on the website, and it was under wellness. Okay. But it's not, and that's not, right. And that's, this is just an aside, but like the website's super hard to navigate as it is.
Yes.
And it's not very clear. Like just trying to find the link to this meeting, I was like in 7 different places. So I think just, you know, we've got some high school students who are super tech savvy who would probably do a lovely job. But my other request, Tanya, is that SEL be put at the top of the agenda. to make sure that it's addressed, at least, mix it up a little bit, because we spent a really long time on IB, which I know is
Yes, I know.
valuable, but also really focuses on like the upper half of our students, and SEL affects every single one of them, including our staff, including our
I hear
parents.
you. I hear you. Okay.
Thank you.
All righty. Well, Antoinette, I'm counting on you to write that email, and Sam, and I guess I think it was Tracy for the new website. I mean, I think we do need to sort of work that into, a more prominent resource. So, okay, guys, it's 7:43. Dr. Reynolds, thank you so very, very much for your time. I know it was long. We haven't had one in a while. So thank you everyone for coming. And why don't we keep the conversation going through emails, Pamela in particular, for the back to school night, and about the website, and also about, moving forward with the superintendent and this committee that's not really a committee, but that is a reopening committee, and how to handle that. I think these are all conversations that we need to keep having from now through basically the end of the summer. So keep them coming. Okay.
Thank you
All
everyone
right.
for the opportunity.
All right. Thank you very much.
Everyone as
All right.
well.
Enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too. Feel better.
Thank you.